everyone, it's Christina of CraftyPaws. I'm here to share a card making process video for Amy Love's birthday giveaway challenge. And she's asked us to show her how we might make a card without using any die cuts. So I thought I would try and do a card and talk you through the process of how I think through designing a card. And I'm going to make a monochromatic card using kind of natural hues and hopefully lots of layers and textures, but trying to keep everything cohesive so that the card looks really well finished. So I'm using this super cute little bunny image from the Mama Elephant Honey Bunny stamp set. I've already watercolored up the little bunnies, and I did that on 140-pound weight Strathmore watercolor paper and then just fussy cut all the way around it. And I think that makes a really soft looking image. So I've chosen a very small paper doily, and I'm just going to ink around the edges with a blending tool. I'm using antique linen because I want a soft kind of natural look. And now normally when you use a blending tool, you would use round circular motions starting off of the piece that you're trying to use the blending tool on. But because the doily is so fragile, I'm going to dab off and then just kind of lightly brush on. So it's not the typical way you would use a blending tool with paper, but I thought that way I'm not going to crinkle up the really delicate paper of the paper doily. And I'm dabbing off onto this kind of my inexpensive craft mat, which is just a plastic sleeve that has a white piece of paper in it so that I can see clearly how much ink I'm getting on the project, but not, stain something permanently that I don't want colored. And this is really easy to wipe off. You can see a little bit of the ink there, and I'm just wiping it off with a damp tissue. So that makes it a little bit less stark white, and I think that is like the perfect size for this little bunny pair. And now you see I also have a little bit of the paper doily that was cut inaccurately, but I'm not worried about that because I'm going to be covering that up. The other thing I like to do to make a finished looking card is I start with a card base that I have folded over, obviously, and then I like to do a little bit of layering. This kind of matting I think gives a really finished look. And so I have this pale chevron pattern paper that was in my scrap box. And then I have this really pretty shimmery cream colored paper. And again, I'm going for that monochromatic look, but I want the edge to be a little bit more distinct. So I'm using some Tim Holtz Distress ink in tea dye. And I think just that little bit of detail adds so much. Now there's lots of places you can put an image all centered like this, or off to the side. I generally like to follow the rule of thirds. So if the bunnies are kind of the focal point here, it's a third of the way up if you were to divide this card vertically into thirds, and 1, 2, 3 this way. So I'd like the doily to reach 2/3 of the way across the card. And I think that gives a nice pleasing balance for your eye to kind of move around on the card. So I'm going to go ahead and use double-sided adhesive. I could have used foam adhesive, but I didn't want this card to get too fat to mail. And then I'm going to adhere the bunnies on the doily onto that pattern paper, just in the center, because I want to leave the edges unattached so I can tuck things behind it. And then I'm going to wrap around, and see, this is where the doily was cut inaccurately, but I'm going to wrap that around the edge here. And I'm just going to use some clear Scotch tape for the back of that. So this is going to get put on that shimmery paper with just a little bit of a border all the way around. I think I'm going to add a little bit of extra interest and add some gold thread, some cording. So I cut away some of the video of just me futzing around with this thread, but I think this is about where I want everything. So I'm just going to use some art glitter glue to glue that into place. Little details like this shimmery gold thread, I think, add a lot to a card too. And now I'm going to attach this layer. And I like how it's coming along so far. I think I'm going to add something for them to sit on. I want something with another pattern on it and something that has a little more visual weight or a darker hue. So I'm taking this little strip from this scrap piece of paper that I had in my scrap box. So I'm just going to use my paper trimmer and cut it down into a strip. And I'm going to make it look like kind of like a ledge that they're sitting on. And I think I'm going to go ahead and ink the edges of this as well. Tuck that in under the bunny's bottoms so they look like they are sitting on top of something. So I think this is coming out too dominant on the card. So I've cut a little strip of vellum that has a polka dot pattern to it. It's just something from my scrap box. And I'm going to tuck it in so that it kind of overlaps most of that pattern strip, just to soften the color a little bit. And I'm just going to add a little glue to the back of this and tuck it in behind the layers here. Using the glue on the back side like this hides it from showing through the vellum. Pull away this a little bit, add a little art glitter glue, tuck this behind, and I think that adds a really nice layer. So even though I had already done that layering before, I think adding that softness made a big difference. And you know, I didn't have to ruin the card to do it. I didn't have to pull it apart. I just had to kind of pull away the edges, and I really like how that looks even better. So for the card liner, I've just cut some white cardstock, and I think I'm going to use this sentiment that says "Somebody loves you," and I'm just lining it up kind of about in the middle, but toward the top of the card. And because I don't have a pigment ink in a kind of brown color, I'm using distress ink, which I normally wouldn't use for a sentiment, but I wanted to have the same kind of monochromatic look. And with the Misty, in case it didn't come out, I was prepared to restamp again, but I actually really like how soft and pretty clear that that stamped out. So surprise, surprise, the distress ink worked great for this sentiment. To make it all coordinate, I'm gonna take another blending tool and just ink lightly around the edges. And you might think, it doesn't really make that much of a difference, but I really think that just that little bit of inking around the edges of that cardstock really makes a difference in the appearance of a finished card. And because I had this little bit of leftover pattern paper that matches the front, I'm going to go ahead and cut a little banner. I'm inking the edge of that as well. And I'll just add that just to add a finishing touch to the inside. And even though I could end everything right here, I thought I could either add some gold stickles or some sequins. And then I remembered that I had these super sweet "Hello, my name is Teresa Collins" wood dots. They're like enamel dots, but they're made out of wood. And I thought that would look so cute with this card. So I'm gonna just go ahead and find a couple of places to put these on. I'm using a medium and a small down here. And then I think I might put a larger one up here. And I think those are really cute. Add a nice little bit of dimension and texture and still staying with that monochromatic, natural kind of color scheme. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you guys are having a wonderful crafty day. If you enjoyed this process video, please give this video a thumbs up.